The following is a presentation of 4-Star Sports Media. Hey fans, did you know that 4-Star Sports Media now has a YouTube channel? You can catch exclusive content covering all things Memphis Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Shows like The Point, and the only show on social media about the Arkansas Razorbacks that is purely fan-driven inside the Hog Pen. Plus other shows like The Hog Trough, the 4-Star Sports Show, and many more coming soon. So check them out today. Go on YouTube.com and search 4-Star Sports Media. Welcome to the 4-Star Sports Media College Football Pick'em Show. Now, live from the BA Mask Studios, here is your host, from The Point, Wes Pruitt.
It has been a long and grueling college football season, but we at 4-Star Sports Media are here to bring you the final matchup. The final countdown is upon us. The national championship for college football will be played tomorrow night in Indianapolis from Lucas Oil Field between two foes that know each other very well, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. Fellas, I was involved in the media press availability calls with the Georgia players yesterday morning, and then the coaches, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, this morning. It was a very cool experience just to listen to all the different questions from esteemed media members from around the nation. I raised my hand to ask questions, but didn't get a chance to because other people asked those questions. But guys, I tell you, when you listen to both players and both coaches, these guys are ready. They know each other very, very, very well. It almost reminds me of like two brothers getting into a fight. I kind of use that analogy because both coaches know each other very well. They have a good idea of what they're going to do. I think tomorrow night, guys, we're going to see some guys step up that we haven't seen maybe step up in the past. If you look at the history of schools, Tua coming, you had O.J. Howard had a breakout game a few years back. But Zach, when you look at this game on the Georgia side of it, we'll start with the Georgia perspective. When you look at this game from the Georgia side, what do you have to do to beat Nick Saban in Alabama?
So, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the first round of Georgia versus Alabama in the SEC championship game. And everybody thought going into that game that Georgia was going to dominate because they dominated the entire season, especially they're on their defensive side of the ball. Everybody thought Alabama doesn't have a shot. Alabama cannot run and cannot compete with this defense. And what happened? Alabama comes out, scores 41 points. The most points on Georgia's defense all season long. Bryce Young puts up unbelievable numbers against this Georgia defense that everybody thought was this bulldog, no pun intended, of a defense this year. Wes, when you look at this defense, they have to make adjustments. And I think you're going to see that Kirby Smart's going to be watching this game, has been watching his game film for 2 weeks now. All right, planning to get the revenge. Is it going to be enough? We don't know. Only time will tell. But that game film from the SEC championship game is very, 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 very useful when planning for Alabama.
It is. It really is. And, when you go back, let's just look at the most recent, what have you done for me lately? Look at Georgia game. Look how they completely just took Aiden Hutchinson out of the game. If you look at them this week, obviously you've got Will Anderson. He was involved in the calls. Great young man. Really, really just astute, smart. They asked him a question about the transfer portal. which I thought was very interesting. And he said, "Hey, you do what you do. That is a personal decision that particular player is making, and at the end of the day, you can't fault the guy one way or another because he's making that decision that is best for him." And I thought that was a very mature answer from Will Anderson, especially to be at the age that he is. But when you look at Georgia, you've got to take away Will Anderson. I think if you look at the secondary of Alabama, that's where their weaknesses are. Can Stetson Bennett exploit those? That's a big question. I think Stetson Bennett is a pretty good quarterback. I know a lot of people have questioned, can Stetson Bennett lead them to a national championship? Well, here he is. He's led them this far. You know, Christian, when you look at Stetson Bennett, I know you haven't been a huge fan of his all year, but excuse me, when you look at Stetson Bennett, can he lead this Georgia team to a national championship?
I've kind of changed my tune with Stetson. Like you said, a lot of people they like to say he's not a good quarterback, and I don't. I disagree with that. I think he's plenty good enough to win, but he's going to have to make some plays. I think most of the season, if you look at Georgia, they really haven't had to. Bennett hasn't really had to go win a game for them. And, against Alabama in the SEC championship, that formula did not work. The ground and pound, shut them down on defense. So I think for Georgia, they've got to be more offensive minded. They cannot afford to be conservative against Alabama. They can run the ball, but they've got to open up the pass game because you're not going to be able to just run it down Alabama's throat the entire game. But I do believe Stetson Bennett is good enough to win this game. I like the guy. I think he's a good story. Not the most talented quarterback we've ever seen, but he's made some throws that, pretty impressive throws. He made some against Michigan. But, this is, I think a lot of the Alabama Georgia matchups, I think Georgia struggles more mentally than, because I think Georgia's plenty good enough talent wise to beat them, but I think Alabama's just got their number, and Nick Saban's a great coach, and Kirby Smart, they're going to have to do some different things in this game. They're going to have to kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Christian, you bring up a good point. And Nathan, I'm coming to you next. But Christian, you bring up a good point. That intimidation factor of looking across and seeing Nick Saban on the sidelines, seeing that Alabama, that crimson and white, come on the field. There's a definite intimidation factor there that a lot of teams have to deal with. Welcome, Brandon Bumgarner, to the show. Brandon, thanks for coming on, buddy. Nathan, when you look at Georgia, right now, Brandon, we're talking about Georgia. When you look at Georgia, Nathan, from an Alabama perspective, you being an Alabama fan, there's some concern, like I just talked about, in that secondary defensively for Alabama. That's where the weaknesses are. That's where we've seen the most weaknesses.
They've got some injuries,
do you
too.
think Georgia can? Yeah, very true. Do you think Georgia can isolate Will Anderson enough to hit some big plays on this secondary?
Well, I think what you got to look at with this Georgia offense is they have a key tight end, Bowers, who is an incredible tight end at that, guys. He's he was really tough to beat in the SEC championship. I know he scored numerous touchdowns on us and got open several times. I wouldn't say our second. I think our secondary has for Alabama has stepped up a little bit more. They know what's at stake. They know that everybody that Stetson Bennett in the Georgia offense is going to look to capitalize on the holes in our defense in the secondary position. And I think that Saban and Pete Golding has worked up something that will take care of the holes. But also, it's not going to just about Pete Golding and Saban take care of it. It's going to be the players like Malachi Moore, Jordan Battle, Honor Davis, you got Job, I mean, list goes on and on. We got even guys that freshmen coming in and stepping into the role too. But I think it's going to be something that that you look at when you come at Alabama's defense. Yeah, you're going to see holes.
Yeah, most definitely. Brandon, come to you next, man. When you look at Georgia, you look at Stetson Bennett. You look at that game against Michigan.
The
Stetson Bennett played pretty
defensive
well.
line.
Brandon, when you look at Georgia, what can they
Can y'all hear
do
me?
to get the win against
Hello?
Alabama?
They can
Go ahead,
come
Nathan.
out. Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, the secondary is going to step up for Alabama also, but Will Anderson Jr., but you talk about him, but you also got to remember Dallas Turner, who also stepped up here lately on that defensive line, and along with Mathis and the rest of, and Christian Harris. So there's going to be a lot more weapons on our defensive end that Georgia's going to have to look out for. Go ahead.
No, I really think
Go ahead, Brandon.
I think Georgia is going to come out with their backs against the wall because they know, I guess on betting odds right now, I think they're still favored, but they're the underdog in this game. They haven't won a championship since the 80s. They've been there. They just haven't been able to close. And guess who's always in front of them when they can't close? Alabama Crimson Tide. I think Kirby Smart is going to have these guys ready to roll tomorrow night. I think it's going to be if you like defense, I think it's going to be one of those games. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of flashy stuff going on. Kermit Davis is saying to his team is keep the ball out of the end zone, and I think Georgia's going to try their best. Stetson Bennett had a very, very good game against Michigan. So I could also see it turning into an offensive shootout type deal. But I just don't think with the preparation time and everything like that, they've had 2 weeks or a week and a half to get this game. I think that it's going to be, more of a ground and pound. Who can run the rock better and stop the run? If you can stop Bama's run, you can beat them. Because don't get me wrong, Bryce Young won the Heisman, but you're down Minchie, and Georgia's secondary is their biggest weakness on defense. So we saw it in the first game. You have to correct your mistakes that you made in the SEC championship game and go from there.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, we talked about Georgia offensively. Now let's talk about Georgia on the defensive side of things. Of course, Bryce Young was under a little bit of pressure against Cincinnati. Maybe not have had the game that most Alabama fans thought he would have. When you look at Georgia, you look at Dan Lamming. Right now, he is pulling double duties. He's the Georgia defensive coordinator currently, and then he's also the head coach at Oregon. Christian, do you think that Dan Lamming doing double duties right now may be too much for him to handle, or do you think that he's going to have this Georgia defense, who blitzes a lot, be sending some extra pressure at Bryce Young this game?
Christian, I believe you're on mute.
Yes, I am. I don't think it'll be a problem. I think Saban will make sure everything is in order. Was it Kirby Smart who was at Alabama and he coached the national championship before, while he was accepted as the head coach at Georgia? And I think they did pretty well in that game. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. But I do think this time around, Alabama's, they've been there. I mean, so has Georgia, but they know what it takes to win a national championship. Georgia's still searching for that. So I really don't know the secret formula to beating Alabama because Georgia seems like they can compete for 4 quarters and then something just, mentally messes with them in, late in the game. I do think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be low scoring. I don't think we'll see a lot of I don't think we'll see a lot of wide open receivers and a lot of huge, big plays like we saw in the first matchup. But man, this will be a fun game to watch. It's a game where it's how the national championship should be. You don't really have a clear-cut favorite in this game. And I could see it going either way, honestly.
Yeah, I can too. Zach, when you look at the Georgia defense, we know the running back for Alabama had a great game against Cincinnati. He is a weapon. When you look at offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, we know he is a great offensive coordinator. You've got the speedster in Williams. I would assume Bill O'Brien's going to be moving him around in formations, put him in slot, maybe motion him one way, then bring him back on the original play, things like that to confuse Georgia. What can Georgia do to slow him down in this game?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, buddy.
For a week and a half now, all you've heard out of Georgia's camp is they've got to make adjustments. They got to make adjustments from that SEC championship game. Like I said earlier in the show, that film is the key for Georgia stepping up and finding a way to slow Alabama's offense down. The primary example that I'm going to use is you have to contain Bryce Young. If you can get to Bryce Young, if you can disrupt him in the pocket,
yeah, and
Georgia's got a ball game.
That's what they weren't able to do in that first game. That's a good point, Zach. They've got to do that, or they're not. They've got to get pressure on Young, or they're not going to win. It's that simple.
No, but the thing about it, guys, you talk about putting pressure on Bryce Young to throw him off. That's the same way with Alabama putting pressure on Stetson Bennett. When we sent a blitz in from Jordan Battle, it threw Stetson Bennett off the game.
Yeah.
That goes for both sides on quarterback.
Yeah, and it does.
You can throw either one off the game.
But you have to understand, if you send a guy in motion, the biggest thing you've got to do is confuse Georgia's defense. If you can confuse their defense, get them the missing line on a linebacker, get their line confused as to what their coverage needs to be, Alabama's going to win again. I mean, there's no magic mix. There's nothing written in the stars that is saying this is how you beat a Nick Saban-led Alabama team. I mean, we're 15 years into this, and this is the most dominant football team ever in college football.
Yeah, you're right. And, getting pressure on Stetson Bennett, that's a lot different than getting pressure on Bryce Young. Bryce Young, even when he's got pressure on him, he can navigate the pocket a little better and make a play. If Stetson Bennett has pressure on him all night, Georgia's not going to win.
Yeah, that's true. Brandon, I come to you next, man. When you look at this Georgia defense, obviously we know about Jordan Davis, the big man plug on that defensive line. He doesn't get a lot of sacks on the season, but he does plug holes. Do you think that's something that Alabama will have to contend with all night?
Absolutely. I think you got to get him in the backfield. He's got to get in the backfield and make some noise. My other thing is, I know on this show I wail on Arkansas a lot, but what Georgia needs to do is watch that film of what Arkansas did to Alabama. They disrupted them, and they made them feel uncomfortable. You watch that film, you watch the Texas A&M film, and you watch the Auburn film.
And the LSU film.
I'm sure they have. I'm sure they already have. But if you can play the way Arkansas played in that game, you can beat Alabama. This is a year where they're beatable. This isn't a year where they're unbeatable and they have every single player under the earth is the best player on planet Earth, or under the sun, not under the earth. Sorry.
Wait a minute. Can we just take a minute?
Zach. Don't ruin it, Zach.
No, I've been waiting all season to say this. Gave Arkansas a compliment against Alabama.
It won't happen if you point it out. It won't happen.
It just happened. What can I take back from it?
I don't know. I don't know. We are 4-Star Sports Show. We are presented to you by 4-Star Sports Media. We're broadcasting live right now from our stellar website, 4star.live. Go by 4star.live to check out all of our content, podcast shows, content, articles, and more. We are also broadcasting right now live on 4-Star Sports Media, Facebook, YouTube, and over on Inside the Hog Pen, one of our shows at 4-Star Sports Media. We're broadcasting live right now. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. And thank you to BA Masks. They are our sponsor here on 4-Star Sports Show. Alan McFerrin and company have done an amazing job forging the future of face masks around the country and are now featured in not only the NIL world, but they are also featured in the new Madden game. You can get on Madden and you can put on a badass face mask, which I think that's pretty cool. But when we go to the Alabama side, Nathan, I'm going to start with you. We will start on the offensive side for Alabama. We know about Mechie being out. Robinson Jr. just had an amazing game against Cincinnati. A lot of work out of the backfield, a lot of runs between the tackles. When you look at the Georgia defense, they're obviously going to be stopping the run. But if you're Alabama, how do you utilize getting the ball to your speedster, and that's Williams, as much as possible?
Well, that's a great question. And I think how you look at it is you go back to the old Alabama way, which is run the ball. Once you start running the ball, you have the chance to do a play action or open up a play action, which will give Jameson Williams the open he needs to pull out a big play. But you also got to look at this. Yes, Mechie is out, but you still got Latu, you still got Billingsley, you still got Booker, you got JoJo Earl. I mean, you got a lot of young talent on the Alabama sideline that's wanting to step up, and that Saban has said before in the press conference, that have actually stepped up. I'm hoping that we see a lot of Hall come out. I hope Hall gets his chance to shine in this game. He's an outstanding wide receiver that we have, and I hope he gets his chance to come out and show the world what he's got. But I think what you're looking for and what Alabama's going to look forward to do on the offensive side, and Bill O'Brien, is run the ball. Go back to the old Alabama ways. Run the ball and let the run work itself into the offense. And once it does, open up for play action as much as possible to give Jameson Williams that cushion that he needs to be the speedster that he is and get past that those defensive backs and into the secondary. But I think the big thing you're going to look at is you're going to see a combination between Brian Robinson Jr. and Trey Sanders in this game. So look forward to seeing both of them come out. And as Brian Robinson said, he's going to give it all he's got in this game. This is one game he's going to come out all out on. So I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, you look at Alabama, of course, their offense revolves around a sophomore quarterback, and that is Heisman winner Bryce Young. If you're Alabama, you've got to keep his jersey clean all night long. How difficult is that going to be against a Georgia defense that brings a lot of exotic blitzes during the course of the game?
I think what you got to look at in that situation is you got to go with how he did in the SEC championship game. Bryce Young has always said he does not like to scramble. He likes to stay in the pocket, go through all his progressions, and make plays. But in the SEC championship, as we all saw, the biggest play that he did was when he scrambled out of the pocket and then all of a sudden optioned out to Brian Robinson. And everybody was so amazed by that. But I think that's just the type of quarterback Bryce Young is. And I think in this game, he's going to go all out and show why he won the Heisman. And I think we're going to see a lot of him scrambling out of the pocket in this game. If he gets blitzed and everything, he'll need to step out of his comfort zone and scramble. So,
all right, Zach, I come to you next, man. When you look at this Georgia defense, like Nathan just talked about, Alabama's going to have to keep Bryce Young clean for the entire game. He's a very knowledgeable, smart smart IQ quarterback. How does Georgia get pressure on Bryce to force him to make mistakes?
Well, I think I think everybody said it so far. You've got the blitz. I mean, it's Georgia's gonna have to blitz all night long. All right, if you play man, he's gonna beat you. I mean, he's a scrambling quarterback, so it's gonna start with Georgia's blitzes, and Alabama's front seven have got to pick that up. And if they pick that up, Bryce Young's gonna have a great night.
Yeah.
Great point. Christian, I come to you next, man. When you look at this, talking about Alabama on the offensive side, now we're going to switch over to the defensive side. When you're Alabama, Georgia's got some weapons. Georgia also loves to turn around and hand the ball off. How difficult is it going to be for Alabama to stop that Georgia running?
It's a good running game, and if Georgia's going to have to get the running game going in order to open up the passing game. That's typically what, that recipe for success for any team, but especially Georgia. That's what they do. They run the ball and play great defense. Alabama on defense, they're going to have to do pretty much what they did the first game. They were able to get out to a lead, and that opened up the defense being able to play a little bit more risky, I guess you could say. They were able to do some things that got Bennett uncomfortable, and you saw him throw a couple interceptions. But I don't think that's going to happen this game. I think Bennett's going to be a lot smarter. I think he was trying to make a lot happen, because they were down 17, 14 at the time. He was just trying to make a play, and that's not when Georgia's at their best. It's not when Stetson Bennett's rolling out and just, hoping the receiver makes a great play. But what I do think you'll see out of Georgia is a lot more effort this time. Obviously they wanted to beat Alabama the first time, but when they played in the SEC championship, Alabama had way more to play for. Georgia was going to go to the playoff regardless. And I'm not saying that's why Alabama won, but it could be. Georgia's going to definitely know what's riding on this game, and Alabama does too. So I expect both teams to just give maximum effort in this game. And the question is,
Hey, Wes.
Oh,
Go ahead, Christian.
What's the X factor in this game? A game like this, it's got to be coaching. And Saban won the first round, and he's won, most of the rounds, most of the games that Kirby Smart and him have gone up against each other. So
He's won every round.
Yeah, until I see otherwise, I don't have any reason to expect that this game's going to go any differently.
I just want to bounce off what Christian was saying.
Go ahead,
and the question that you asked, Wes. I think what Alabama's got to focus on the defensive side is you got to communicate on that defense. Miscommunication will open up holes in that defensive unit, in our defensive backs and our secondary. I think the second thing you got to look at is you got to make sure to not miss tackles. Because any chance you miss a tackle on any of these running backs that Georgia has, these are elite running backs, guys. These guys are impressive, and they're on the NFL level. These guys they run hard and they run fast. And when you give them a hole, I mean, it's their sign to score a touchdown, and they will do it. So I think the two things that Alabama's got to look at on the defensive end out of the defense is communication, and I think the second thing is you got to wrap up. You got to tackle these guys, because if you miss a tackle, I mean, Georgia's going to make you pay for it.
Yeah, they will. That's very true. Brandon, I come to you next, man. When you look at Georgia this year, they've been pretty well unstoppable, all besides one game, and that was Alabama. And then when you look at it on the other side of it, we saw Georgia get back to its ways against a Michigan team that we all thought was going to be pretty good. If you look at those semifinal matchups, they definitely weren't competitive, to say the least. When you look at this matchup with Georgia and Alabama, looking at Alabama defensively, how much of a threat do they pose? to Alabama.
How much of a threat does Georgia's defense pose to Alabama?
No. How much of a threat is this Georgia offense, running game, passing game, everything included? How much of a threat is it to this Alabama defense?
I don't really think their offense is a threat to anybody. I think their offense is just kind of average, but their defense is what's going to win them this football game if they do win it. But on the other hand, like we've seen Bama's defense early in the year. They were struggling and everything else, but Will Anderson Jr. is the end-all be-all of that defense. If he's making plays and running around and making tackles and getting sacks and deflections and everything, good luck. You're not going to win that game if he's doing all that, but you need to take him out of the game. And I'm not saying get him injured. I'm saying make the game plan go around him where he doesn't even get close to the football.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, I alluded to it earlier. That's really very similar to what they did against Michigan and Aiden Hutchinson. They pretty well neutralized him that entire game. And we see the end result with the win playing for the national championship. All right, guys. So we've talked about it from both angles. We've given X factors. Now it's time to give our predictions. Zach, I will start with you, man. Georgia, Alabama, round 2 this year. Who gets the win?
Oh man, dude, this is. I don't know, to be honest with you. I want to give the edge to Alabama, or I'm sorry, I want to give the edge to Georgia, but after what I saw in the SEC championship game, how are you going to stop Bama? That's going to be the $100 question: is what or who is going to step up to try to slow Alabama down on Georgia's side of the ball, on both offense and defense. So I'm going to play it safe this time, and I'm going to go Alabama.
All right. Christian, what about you, man? You're on mute, buddy.
You're on mute.
I've thought long and hard about this, and trying to come up with a reason in my head to pick Georgia. Not because I want them to win. I don't really care who wins. But Alabama, man, I think we've seen enough of a sample size to know that Alabama is in Georgia's head and nothing will change. Alabama is just in their head. Obviously, they're good enough to beat them because they've proved it. They proved it this year. So, I don't think you'll see a lopsided score like you did the first game. And this matchup's going to be a little different than the first matchup because of the John Mechie being out. Alabama's going to have to get a little more creative, and they're going to have to use some other receivers. But they're more than capable of making plays, or they wouldn't be at Alabama. Yeah, I've got Alabama winning this game by 7 points.
Okay. All right. Brandon, I'll come to you next. Can Georgia climb Mount Saban?
Yeah, tell them, Memphis. Tell them who's going to whoop that Alabama ass tomorrow. Tell them the Georgia Bulldogs are coming for them. They were my pick at the beginning of the year. They're my pick right now. Georgia's going to whoop that Bama ass tomorrow.
We've got it.
All right.
Well, we that.
Wow.
Oh, it'll be edited. Right. Don't worry. All right. So, Nathan, I come to you next to last. Nathan, obviously, this is a big matchup for Kirby Smart. Christian talked about it, about having them being in their head. Me watching and being involved in those press conferences yesterday and today, I get the feeling from the Georgia side that they're really tired of Nick Saban in Alabama.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Are you worried about this game when it comes to you as an Alabama fan? Are you concerned? And will Kirby get it done, or does Nick get the win? Nathan, go ahead.
Okay, let me. This is for any Alabama fans listening. To be a true Bama fan, you got to understand the team that we're facing. Yeah, we're facing Georgia, but it's the guy that's the head coach for Georgia, which is Kirby Smart, who is the man, the guy that he's the reason Alabama's defense was scary to play when he was the defense coordinator at Alabama. As an Alabama fan, no matter which way this game goes, if Kirby Smart comes in and with the correct mindset and beats Bama, look, I'm going to have nothing but high praise and respect for the man because he was a former Saban. He was a former coach at Alabama, and he deserves it. He's a great coach. He's a great guy. Um, so there would not be no hard feelings towards Georgia or towards the fan base or towards Kirby Smart because the man he's done everything he can to bring that Georgia team to what they are today. And
Are you
but
about to
coming
pick
into this
Georgia?
game, well, hold on. Coming into this game, am I nervous about it? I mean, everybody's going to be nervous. This is what makes college football. This is going to be one of them games that's going to be remembered. It's going to be a great one. And to look at the record, and Nick Saban would always say, "Don't worry." He's not worried about the records. In which, if you look at it, he's 3-0 against Kirby. He's 3-0 against Kirby. Kirby's never beaten him, but Kirby's come close several times. But in this perspective, if Kirby Smart wants to beat Nick Saban and everything wants to be a national championship, Nick Saban's not just going to hand it to him. He's going to have to earn it. And I think that's what Kirby Smart's got in his head, and he's got it in that team's head, that in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And what's best way to beat the best is to beat the defending champions. But saying that, I will never go against my Crimson Tide, and I will always back my boys up. This is going to be a great matchup, guys. I'm excited about it. I'm picking my boys in the Crimson Tide. I'm picking Bama. Nick Saban's got the guys focused. I mean, in a lot of press conferences, even Bryce Young said it best, and Will Anderson said it best. This is a business. This is a business trip, fellas. We're just here to take care of business, and that's what I believe that the mindset that they have coming into this game against Georgia. So I'm going with Bama. Roll Tide.
Wes, before you do your pick,
All
Nate, I
right.
got a question. I got a question for Nate. Was Kirby Smart first, I guess, descendant or offshoot from the Saban coaching tree in Power Five when he was at Alabama, or was it Muschamp?
I honestly think Kirby Smart played a big role in when he was when he was with Nick Saban. Muschamp, I don't really see him being. I mean, yeah, he's a Saban assistant, but Kirby Smart is the guy that we all, as Bama fans, respect the most out of all the Saban assistants. It was Kirby Smart. The man busted his tail for that defense. He made that defense. I mean, he made Alabama's defense what they are today, and made them step up the way they have. When he was defense coordinator at Alabama, dude, it was scary to play Alabama. You didn't want to play them, and it wasn't because of what they had on offense; it was because of defense. And Kirby and it's like Wes said earlier. Kirby and Saban are like they're best friends, man. They communicate a lot. They talk a lot. In this game right here, you're going to see two great head coaches going at it, and Kirby Smart has learned a lot under Nick Saban, and I think that this Nick Saban, if he was to lose against Kirby Smart for a national championship, he's going to tell you straight up in the press conference after. He's just proud of him and happy to see him accomplish a national title at Georgia.
Yeah, being involved in that media in those press conferences, you really saw the respect that both men have for each other, and you can see in Nick's eye, he's proud of all of his assistants move on, but I think Kirby's got a special spot. Just Nick seems to glow a little bit when it comes to Kirby, and this is going to be a great game tomorrow night. Kicks off at 8 p.m. When you look at this Georgia team, though, I think this is Kirby's chance to do it, and I think he gets it done tomorrow night. I think Kirby Smart and Georgia get the win. I'll give them a 10-point win over the Alabama Crimson Tide tomorrow night. I think Stetson Bennett ends up being the MVP, and I think we see Stetson Bennett use his legs a little more tomorrow night to get the win. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night, guys. One other thing before we get out of here, fellas. Something else is going to be a lot of fun is that at the end of the month, 4-Star Sports Media will be at the Reese's Senior Bowl from January 31st through February 5th. We'll be broadcasting live down there every day. Practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The parade is Friday night. Game is Saturday. We will be bringing you live broadcasts every morning, probably for a couple hours to talk about the day, and then we'll go to practice, do all that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Brandon Bumgarner and I will be down there in the great city of Mobile.
Yeah.
Not
In the
not
dogs!
played at Lad Peoples anymore. It's now being played. It is now being played at the brand new stadium down there. They say it is beautiful. We are looking forward to it. But once again, thank you to everybody watching right now. 4-Star Sports Media Facebook and YouTube page. Inside the Hog Pen with Razorback Zach. We're broadcasting live as well right now. And on the 4star.live website. We're live right now. Go click the play button and you can hear us. Excuse me. Also, this show will be rebroadcasted right back to the website and the audio server as well once completed. Fellas, it's been a lot of fun this football season. It now come to an end. It's time. We will now be transitioning over to basketball moving forward with football season ending. But it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of upsets. We've come on this show quite upset. We have had some rants from hell on this show. It's been a lot of fun, and from everyone at 4-Star Sports Media, we thank everyone because without you guys, we could not do what we love doing, and that's bring this to you every week. But for Nathan Wilson, Christian Johnston, Big Bad Bumgarner, Razorback Zach, I am Wes Pruitt, and we are out.
We love you.
Go Hogs!
Go
Roll
Tigers.
Tide.
Go Tigers.